I used to stop at the same coffee shop every Thursday after work, not because the coffee was special, but because no one asked questions there. The barista knew the order. The table by the window stayed empty at that hour. It felt like a place where nothing new was supposed to happen. That's where it started. Or maybe that's just where it became noticeable. She was already there the first time I saw her properly, standing near the pickup counter, coat half on, phone pressed between shoulder and ear. Mid-conversation, she laughed once, soft, surprised, like something had caught her off guard. Not for me. For whoever was on the other end. Still, the sound lingered longer than it should have. When she turned, our eyes met for a second too long. Not dramatic, just long enough to notice the pause. She smiled, polite but distracted, then stepped aside so I could grab my cup. "Careful," she said, nodding at the lid. "They overfill it." I thanked her. That was it. Nothing worth remembering. Except I did. The next week, she was there again. Same table. Same time. A thermos beside her coffee, like she didn't quite trust the place to keep her warm. When I ordered, the barista asked if I wanted the usual, and she glanced over, curious, like that detail mattered. "Usual," I said. She smiled at that, like routines were something to be proud of. We didn't talk that day, or the one after. But there were these small acknowledgments. Her moving her bag so I could pass, my nod when she refilled her cup with hot water from the counter. Once, she folded her napkin slowly while staring out the window, then looked up as if she'd forgotten where she was. Our eyes met again. This time she didn't look away first. I noticed things I didn't have names for. The way she listened when people spoke, head tilted slightly, hands still. The faint crease between her brows when she read something on her phone. How she never checked it twice in a row. At home, my place stayed quiet. I'd open messages and type half a sentence, then close the app. I'd leave the TV on without watching. Thursday nights became something I prepared for without admitting it. Clean shirt, earlier train, coffee instead of takeout. One afternoon, the chair across from her was empty longer than usual. When I sat down nearby, she looked relieved, like the room had returned to balance. "Busy today," she said, nodding at my laptop. "Trying to look like it," I replied. That earned a real smile. She wrapped both hands around her cup, waited a beat. "I'm Anna." I told her my name. She repeated it once, quietly, like she was testing how it sounded. Conversation came in pieces. The weather. The shop changing owners. A joke about burnt espresso. When her phone buzzed, she didn't check it right away. When mine did, I ignored it entirely. She stood to leave first. Hesitated. "See you next Thursday." It wasn't a question exactly. That night, I lay awake thinking about how easily she'd said it. How she'd looked at my hands when I closed my laptop. How she'd lowered her voice at the end, as if the room might be listening. The following week, she arrived late. Rain in her hair. Breath slightly uneven. She sat down, exhaled, then leaned in closer than before. "I shouldn't say this," she said. A pause. Her fingers brushed the edge of the table, then stilled. "But I'm glad you're here." Before I could respond, her phone lit up. She glanced at it, then turned it face down. "This stays between us," she whispered. My phone buzzed a second later. An unknown number, a single line of text. "Can we talk somewhere else?" And suddenly, the coffee tasted different. We didn't go somewhere else. Not really. Just the bench outside, under the awning, where the rain couldn't quite decide if it wanted in. She poured tea from the thermos into the paper cup meant for coffee. The steam rose between us, thin and unsure. I noticed her hands shake, just a little, before she steadied them by pressing her thumb against the lid. "Habit," she said, catching me looking. "I bring it everywhere, even places I don't need it." I nodded like I understood. Maybe I did. We sat without facing each other, shoulders angled toward the street. Cars hissed past. Someone laughed too loudly inside the shop. She took a sip, winced. "Too hot," she said, then smiled like she was used to ignoring warnings. She asked about my work. I gave the safe version. She listened anyway, like she was filing it away for later. When I asked about her day, she hesitated longer than necessary. "My son had a game," she said. "Didn't play much. He pretends it doesn't bother him." Something tightened in my chest. I'd known, of course, or guessed. Still, hearing it made the air feel thinner. He's around your age, she added, almost apologetic. A little younger. I laughed too fast. That explains the patience. She smiled, then looked down at the cup. It explains some things. Silence stretched. Not awkward, just full. I imagined other versions of this moment, standing closer, saying something braver, saying nothing at all. Each one ended with her walking away. I used to think I'd be different, she said suddenly. Not here. Not single again. But life doesn't ask. I wanted to say something reassuring. Instead, I watched a drop of rain slide off the awning and shatter on the pavement. I don't talk about this much, she continued. It feels like admitting failure. It doesn't sound like that, I said. She glanced at me, searching. You don't know the whole story. No, I said. But I know the part where you show up anyway. Her breath caught. Just once. I told her about the nights I kept my phone face down, about typing messages I never sent, about how Thursdays had started to matter more than they should. I didn't look at her while I said it. When I finished, the rain had slowed. She reached out then, not to touch me, not exactly, but to straighten the sleeve of my jacket where it had folded wrong. The gesture was brief, careful, like fixing something small before it unraveled. Be careful, she said softly. I come with context. I know, I replied. And I did. Her age. Her son. The way the world would read this differently than it felt. She smiled, sad and warm at the same time. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, she said, eyes on the street. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. When she stood to leave, she hesitated again. This time, her fingers brushed mine as she handed back the cup. Not an accident. Not a promise. Just enough to make the walk home feel longer than usual. The following Thursday, the chair across from me stayed empty. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. I checked the door more than I meant to, pretending to scroll. The barista raised an eyebrow when I ordered, like something had shifted in the pattern. She hasn't been in yet, he said, casual. I nodded. Too quickly. Took my cup to the window anyway. When she finally arrived, it wasn't alone. A woman walked in beside her. Same age, similar laugh, louder. They stood close, heads tilted together. The woman glanced around, then looked straight at me. Not curious. Knowing. Anna followed her gaze. Our eyes met. She froze. Just for a second. Then she smiled, polite, distant, and turned back to her friend. They sat at the table. Our table. I stayed where I was. She didn't look at me again until the friend went to order. When she did, her expression had changed. Careful, guarded, like she'd put something fragile away too fast. Hi, she said, when the friend was out of earshot. Hi, I said back. Nothing else fit. This is Maya, she added. We used to work together. Maya returned, coffee in hand, and smiled at me again. You're the Thursday guy? I laughed. Guess I am. Anna's fingers tightened around her cup. She didn't correct her. Conversation moved around me instead of including me. Weekend plans. Traffic. Someone's renovation nightmare. I listened, nodded, folded my napkin into squares and unfolded it again. Anna watched my hands once, then looked away. When Maya stepped outside to take a call, the quiet rushed back in. I didn't know you were coming today, Anna said. Neither did I replied. Then softer, I thought you weren't. She glanced at the door. Things changed. That was all she offered. The rest of the hour felt like sitting beside a closed door. She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. She kept checking the time. When I stood to leave, she stood too, like it mattered that we ended at the same moment. Outside, Maya waved goodbye and walked down the street. Anna stayed under the awning. I'm sorry, she said, not looking at me. For what? For letting it feel like something. The words landed heavier than she intended. I watched her mouth close, like she wished she could pull them back. I don't know what I want, she continued. And that's not fair to you. I wanted to say it was okay. Wanted to say it wasn't that simple. Instead, I said nothing. She exhaled, long and slow. You deserve clarity. And you? I asked. She looked up then. Really looked. The street noise faded. I could see the faint lines near her eyes, the hesitation there. I deserve restraint, she said. A beat. Another. She reached out, then stopped halfway, hand hovering near my wrist. Close enough to feel the warmth. Not close enough to touch. For a moment, neither of us moved. The space between us felt charged, fragile. I leaned in without deciding to. She did too. Almost. Her phone vibrated. She pulled back immediately, color rising in her cheeks. Looked at the screen. Didn't answer. I should go, she said. Okay. She hesitated, then leaned in and pressed a quick kiss to my cheek. Barely there. Apologetic. Dangerous. As she walked away, she didn't look back. I stayed under the awning longer than necessary, the rain starting again, thinking about how close almost was and how loud the silence felt afterward. We didn't meet at the shop that week. She texted instead. Late. Just a location and a time. No explanation. I stared at the screen longer than necessary before replying. Okay. It was a small park wedged between two streets, the kind people pass through without meaning to stay. A bench still damp from the afternoon rain. She was already there when I arrived, coat folded beside her, hands wrapped around nothing. You walk here? I asked. Needed air, she said. Thought sitting might make it worse. We didn't sit right away. We walked the short path back and forth, shoes crunching softly on gravel. Our steps never quite synced. I saw you last week, she said suddenly. After you left. With Maya. No. Later. She paused. With someone else. Younger. Laughing too hard. I stopped walking. She kept going, then realized and turned back. It shouldn't have mattered, she said quickly. I know that. It's not. It did, I said. She nodded. Once. Like that hurt, but not enough to deny. I don't like who I become, she said. Watching. Measuring. Wondering. We sat then. Space between us. Her knee angled toward mine, then away again. She stared at the empty playground across the grass. I keep thinking about consequences, she continued. About my son. About being someone's story they have to explain later. I never asked you to be reckless, I said. I know. She looked at me. That's the problem. Silence settled. Not awkward. Heavy. I noticed her foot tapping, then stopping when she realized I'd noticed. I imagined reaching out, stilling it with my hand. Didn't. I almost called you, she said. The other night. Why didn't you? Because I didn't trust myself to hang up. That felt like a confession, even if she didn't call it one. My chest tightened. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, stared at the ground. I think about you more than I should, I said. The words surprised me by how easily they came. In lines. In crowds. In places you've never been. She swallowed. That's not fair. I know. She laughed quietly, without humor. You say things like that, and then look at the ground like you're not allowed to. I don't want to pressure you. You already do, she said gently. Just by being steady. Her hand moved. Stopped. Rested on the bench between us, palm up. An offering. Or a warning. I watched it, every line, every tremor. If I let this go further, she said, voice low, I don't know how I'd forgive myself. If you don't, I asked, what happens to us? She didn't answer. Just looked at me. Really looked. The air felt thin again, like that first day under the awning. I leaned in. She didn't move away. Her breath hitched. Tell me, she whispered, eyes searching mine. Tell her what? That I wanted her. That I could wait. That waiting already hurt. Her hand brushed my knee this time. Stayed there. And neither of us asked the question out loud. But it sat between us anyway. Unanswered, unbearable. The next Thursday, I didn't go. Not out of spite. Not to make a point. I just woke up already tired of measuring myself. Of watching her hands for permission. Of carrying something that didn't have a place to land. I told myself I'd go the week after. Or the one after that. My phone stayed quiet all morning. Then, just before noon, a message appeared. Everything okay? I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Typed yes and deleted it. Typed busy and deleted that too. Left it unanswered. It felt cruel. It also felt like the only thing I could control. The shop kept existing without us. I walked past once, by accident. The window table was taken by someone else. Two people leaning in, laughing. Ordinary. That night, she called. I didn't answer. The voicemail came through a minute later. I listened to it once. Then again. Her voice sounded different, less careful. I shouldn't be calling. I know that. I needed to say something before I lose the nerve. A pause. Breathing. My ex is moving back. Temporarily. For my son. It's complicated. I didn't tell you because I didn't want it to become real. Another pause. Longer this time. I don't expect anything from you. I just didn't want you to think you imagined us. The line went dead. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, the room dim. For a moment, hope flared, sharp, stupid. Then confusion followed, heavier. What did that make us? A chapter? A footnote? I typed a reply. Thank you for telling me. Deleted it. I'm here. Deleted that too. I imagined showing up at the park, at the shop, at her door. Imagined the look on her face. Imagined all the ways it could go wrong. Instead, I did nothing. Days passed. Then a week. I went back to the shop on a different day, sat at a different table. Ordered something new. The barista noticed. Switching it up, he asked. Trying to, I said. My phone buzzed once more. A draft message from her. Unsent. Sitting in the thread like a held breath. I didn't open it. I didn't delete it either. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. On Thursday afternoon, the chair across from me stayed empty. This time, on purpose, she showed up at my door on a Sunday afternoon, unannounced, like she'd finally accepted that planning wouldn't help. I knew it was her before I opened it. The pause on the other side said enough. I won't stay long, she said immediately. Coat still on. Bag clutched like an exit plan. That's okay, I said. I stepped aside anyway. My place looked exactly like it always did, clean enough to suggest effort, empty enough to explain things. She took it in without comment, eyes lingering on the small kitchen, the sink with one glass drying upside down. I almost didn't come, she said. I figured. She smiled at that. Tired. Honest. We stood near the counter. Not touching. Not far. The fridge hummed. Somewhere outside, someone slammed a car door. I listened to your voicemail, I said. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I should. She nodded. That seems to be the theme. Silence. She reached for the glass, then stopped, hands folding together instead. I noticed how careful she was with them now. My ex is staying longer than expected, she said. My son thinks it means something it doesn't. Or maybe it does. I don't know yet. I waited. I realized something, she continued. I don't get to want things the way I used to. Wanting has consequences. I leaned back against the counter. And what about not wanting? She looked at me then. Really looked. That has consequences too. The words settled between us. Not dramatic. Just true. I didn't come to ask you for anything, she said. I came because disappearing felt worse. That goes both ways, I said. She let out a breath she'd been holding. I was afraid you'd hate me. I don't. Pity me. No. She searched my face, like she was bracing for something harsher. When it didn't come, her eyes softened. I care about you, I said. The words felt risky. Necessary. Enough to not pretend this is simple. She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were wet but steady. I care about you too, she said. Enough to stop before it breaks something I can't fix. I nodded. That hurt. It also made sense. We stood there, suspended. Then she reached out, not to pull me closer, but to rest her hand on my arm. Just there. Warm. Grounding. I don't regret us, she said quietly. Neither do I. Her hand stayed a moment longer. Then she smiled. Small. Grateful. The kind of smile that doesn't ask for more. Okay, she said. Okay, I replied. At the door, she paused, then leaned in and kissed my cheek. This time, it wasn't rushed. It was deliberate. A full stop. When she left, the apartment felt different. Not emptier. Just settled. I didn't follow her. I stood there a while, hand still warm where she'd touched it, knowing exactly what we chose and why it mattered. Time didn't fix things. It just rearranged them. Weeks passed. Then months. Thursdays stopped meaning one thing and started meaning something else. Laundry nights, late trains, unanswered emails that didn't ache anymore. I still walked past the coffee shop sometimes. Still noticed the window table at 8:47 a.m. Still ordered black coffee, even when I didn't need the caffeine. She didn't disappear. Neither did I. We found a quieter rhythm. Messages that didn't rush. Calls that ended early on purpose. Once, we crossed paths at the park, the same bench, dry this time. We sat, talked about nothing important. talked about everything adjacent to it. Her life settled first. The house quieted. The complications loosened their grip. Mine followed, slower. I stopped waiting for moments to rescue me. Started showing up where I already was. When we finally spent an evening together again, it wasn't dramatic. Just tea on her kitchen counter. The same thermos. Same careful pour. She teased me for still drinking it too hot. I teased her for pretending it didn't matter. We didn't rush. We never did again. Love didn't arrive like a declaration. It arrived like permission. Like sitting close without checking the time. Like reaching for her hand and not pulling back. Like knowing when to leave and choosing to stay. Some nights, we talked about the almosts. Most nights, we didn't need to. Life stayed imperfect. Her son grew louder. My work grew heavier. We argued about small things and apologized without ceremony. We learned each other's silences. Learned when to press and when to let go. On Thursdays, sometimes, we still went to the shop. Not every week. Not at the same hour. We never sat at the window table. But we ordered the same drinks. Black coffee for me. Tea from the thermos for her. Once, she caught me folding a napkin into squares. "You still do that," she said, smiling. "So do you." I replied, nodding at her hands. She laughed. Not surprised this time. It wasn't the kind of love people write songs about. It was the kind that knows when to be quiet. The kind that waited until it could exist without hurting anyone. The kind that felt better because it almost didn't happen. One morning, much later, she leaned her head against my shoulder on that same park bench. No rain. No urgency. Just warmth. "This stays between us," she said again, this time smiling. I nodded, knowing exactly what she meant. If this story stayed with you, you already know why. What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?